And we'll go ahead and mute everybody as well, just to make that easier here. But if everybody wants to, we'll turn that on in a second here. Okay, so and I'll share my screen here in just a second. But welcome everybody to our first edition of the Grants Management Seminar for the 2021-22 Rotary year. This is, we'll tell you about why you're here in a second, but first for the introductions part of things, my name's Kyle Haugen. I'm our current District Rotary Foundation team leader, and with me as well, who you'll be hearing plenty from, is our District Grants team leader, Margie Horning. Margie, do you want to say hi to everybody?
I think I was saying hi the whole time.
I think you were as well.
Hi, everybody, and I'm glad you're here.
Absolutely. This is a few housekeeping things before we get going. Please just keep yourself muted as much as possible, just to reduce the amount of interruptions. And unless you're eating hot dogs, that's a viable excuse. But try to keep your cameras on just so we know you're engaged, and we can see if there's any quizzical looks or anything like that. I asked you to rename yourself along the way. If you have any questions, go ahead and use the chat box for those, and feel free just to send them to me. We can answer them either along the way, or we'll certainly have Q&A time at the end where we'll both take questions from the chat as well as just open it up for questions then. This is a requirement for being eligible to do a grant next year. So we will have some poll questions along the way. So that's making sure you're paying attention at that point and everything. And that's a way we can make sure you're attentive. And if you have any technical issues, let Ed Merrick or I know, as we're kind of hosting this. Kathy Hewitt, who typically would host these things, is on vacation this weekend. So you know, it's kind of the inmates running the asylum with the amateurs doing it. The purpose of the Grants Management Seminar, there's several purposes here. And number one, we want to share the requirements on grants so that you can put together not only an acceptable grant, but the best possible project that you can do. And we want to make the process as easy as possible for you. So we'll go through some of the grant process to broaden your knowledge base and understanding there. So it's not intimidating or anything like that. And lastly, the Rotary Foundation requires a club be qualified to sponsor a grant. So your participation today will help you qualify to sponsor a district grant in the 2021-22 Rotary year. This is only for 21-22. So you would have to attend again for grants in future years. And if you're planning to do a global grant, this is not the only meeting as well. You need to attend this one and one of our global grants workshops, which are, I think they're starting next, they'll be a week from tonight and then 2 weeks from tonight, if I remember correctly. And this isn't the only other requirement. There are a couple other things that we'll talk about in a little while. Our agenda, you can see it there. We'll go through the purpose, which we already kind of did, get some comments from a few people, talk about the difference between global and district grants, talk about where we're at in terms of a funding update for the coming year, and then how to create a district grant, what some of the tools are that will help you be successful, going through the importance of document retention, and then just a few overall principles. This is designed, I will tell you that in some parts of the world, the district grants seminar is a day-long seminar that gets into the weeds and everything like that. We've chosen not to do that because, frankly, if we had a 4 or 5 hour session to go into all the details, you're not going to remember them anyway. And it's going to be very intimidating from that standpoint. So our main goal tonight is to really cover the key points and tell you the things you need to know, along with providing time for you to ask questions of what you want to know. And then we have our grants team and our mentors able to help you offline to get through some of those details. So we're not trying to glaze everybody's eyes over. With that, I want to go to our first attendance check, which means please enter your name and club into the chat box, and we will we'll give you about 30 seconds on that, and then we'll go from there. All right, I think we're good enough from that standpoint. If you haven't entered your name yet, go ahead and keep doing that. But it's my pleasure in the meantime, before we get into the meat of our discussion, I'd like to welcome next year's district governor, Kenny Klooster, for some comments. So Kenny, go ahead and unmute yourself, and I'll even stop sharing my screen so everybody can see your lovely face.
Well, I don't know. I think the picture that you have up there, Kyle, was much better than I had a tie on, a suit on, the whole works, instead of being at home and just having a t-shirt on. So at least I have an appropriate background. So thank you all for being here tonight and for attending this very first district grant seminar for 21-22. By attending this, you already know why you're here. It's taking the money, that we give to the foundation, having it returned back to the clubs, and you guys finding some great projects to do both here locally as well as globally. So I want to applaud you for that. And nothing gets done at the district level without the teamwork that we have. And I mean, it starts at the top with Margie and Kyle and Ed and all the mentors. So again, thank you to all the leadership and from the district level, as well as the leadership from the club level. So thank you all very much. And without further ado, Kyle, I'm going to throw it back to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Kenny. And I will, I'll put that other one up there. It's like a before and after picture for you. So there you go. But before we talk about the grants specifically, we want to set a little bit of a stage on the importance of the Rotary Foundation for a few minutes. And to spread things around, here to do that is our incoming District Rotary Foundation team leader, who will actually be in my proverbial seat starting July 1st. And that is our district governor now, but he'll have a new role, Ed Merrick. Ed, you're muted, Ed, but never sounded better.
Well, I've been doing a poll, Kenny, for your information, and 9 out of 10 of the clubs that I polled prefer the DG to be muted, just so you know.
I can help with that, Ed. I can do that.
Okay. So I'd like to talk a little bit about, as Kyle pointed out, have you got a slide for me there, Kyle?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, hold on. I forgot that you actually had slides that, we have here, so my bad.
But I want you to think about Rotary's areas of focus. And now there are going to be 7 of them coming in. Peace building and conflict prevention, resolution, disease prevention and treatment, water, sanitation and hygiene, maternal and child health, basic education and literacy, community economic development, and the new one coming in July 2021 is the environment. And when you look at those, it's kind of tough to summarize it all because they're kind of scattered all over the place and in many different areas. But Rotary's 7 focus areas all support the concept of positive peace. And what is positive peace? Well, it's the fulfillment of all needs in a society. Where peace can sometimes be mistaken as the absence of war or violence, this is a much broader definition that focuses on creating a fair, just, and fulfilled society. When citizens are being supported and all needs are being met, we eliminate the need for conflict. And when we think about what we do as Rotarians, putting all that together, we're really creating positive peace. Last year, the New Richmond Club did a grant to build a hand washing station and latrine at a school in a village in Panama. You know, in the developing world, girls stop going to school when they start menstruating because they don't have access to clean and safe facilities. By providing the latrine, girls can continue to go to school and complete their education. That's definitely creating a more peaceful society. Another example last year was South St. Paul Inver Grove Heights Club. They provided vision screening tools to schools in the community so they could better help identify vision issues in students, allowing for solutions that will help those students achieve success. Again, creating positive peace and improving society as a whole. There are countless more examples of how we create positive peace through our actions as Rotarians, but I think it's important that we share our impact. And more importantly, realize that the Rotary Foundation is the vehicle that helps us maximize the impact for positive peace. We create, for the positive peace that we create in the lives of other people. And giving to the Rotary Foundation is the path to making that happen. So make sure you give and encourage your club members to support the Rotary Foundation, because that's what makes it all roll. Kyle?
Thanks, Ed. Some of you may already know how the Rotary Foundation works with grants, but as Ed said, it's all about the dollars that are going in. And I'd like to share a brief illustration to make sure everyone has the same baseline and how the Rotary Foundation works. There are three main places that you can really give to within the Rotary Foundation. The endowment fund on the right of the screen, those are typically bigger gifts that are held in perpetuity at the Rotary Foundation. It's invested, and then the earnings are used to help fund other projects. Polio Plus on the left, obviously those funds go directly to our most significant project purpose, polio eradication, and monies that are given to Polio Plus go directly to support that, along with those dollars are matched by the Gates Foundation 2-to-1. The annual fund share, though, is that middle one, and that is the key one when it comes to grants. And here's how that works. When you give to the Rotary Foundation's annual fund share, like so many of you did last month during our Share the Love campaign, that money goes and sits at the Rotary Foundation for 3 years. While it's there, it's invested, and they use the investment returns to take care of the expenses. So nearly 100% of every dollar you give to the annual fund ends up being used for good, not for administration. And after 3 years, those dollars get split two ways. 50% of it goes to the World Fund, which is controlled by the Rotary Foundation's Board of Trustees, and are used for things like peace centers, matching global grants, contributions to Polio Plus. And in the last 15 months, they took, I think it's over $7 million from the World Fund and moved it to Rotary's Disaster Response Fund, which was set up about 5 years ago to help fund natural disasters in a more rapid response. But it's been really repurposed into being utilized for COVID-related response. And in fact, our district got a grant approaching a year ago for $25,000 from that Disaster Response Fund for COVID-related activities. The other 50%, though, and this is, as Margie said, this is the magic of how the Rotary Foundation really works. That comes back to our district as district designated funds, where we as a district control those. Our district grants team and our Rotary Foundation team officially puts that money into play, but it comes down to what you do for grants. This money is used for matching projects through grants that you want to use, or global grant scholarships. And we do, as a district, send some money to Polio Plus each year as well, because there's an additional World Fund match before the Gates Foundation match. So our money, it becomes multiplied much greater there. But the fact of the matter is that we have control over that. If you want to do a project like some that Ed mentioned or that Margie will mention in a minute, we have a say. And that's because of those district designated funds coming back to us. So to summarize, the Rotary Foundation is the vehicle that allows us to maximize the impact we have in our communities and around the world through grants. And the more money we have, the bigger the impact we can make. So it's important we don't just focus on spending our funds, but we need to encourage our members to give as well. As grant sponsors, make sure you're promoting how the Rotary Foundation is helping your grant be successful, and encourage your members to give to the Rotary Foundation, because the more we give, the more we can do. You're not just a sponsor of a grant, but you need to be a champion for giving to the Rotary Foundation as well. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Margie, and she can share a little bit about some of the details of global versus district grants. Margie. Hey, Margie, you gotta unmute yourself.
I guess that would be important. How could you possibly tune out on this if I'm not even talking to you? So at any rate, first of all, let's take a look at the district grant side. And district grants are really a tool for Rotary districts to support short-term humanitarian projects that benefit a community. And that we get that in the way of a block grant, and then we divvy it up with all the clubs that request funding for their individual grant requests. Now, as far as locations go, district grants can be local or they can be international in many countries. Some countries we can't go into, but most countries we can. They're smaller dollar amounts, which means they're smaller in scope. So they're short-term in nature. Typically, we would like them to be completed within 12 months, but with COVID this past year, it sort of played havoc with that timeline. But that's kind of the shorter term, not like a global grant. International partners, and that would be a partner in the country you're doing the work in, say an African country or Guatemala, Nicaragua. The international partners are encouraged, but they are not required for a district grant. An example of this being an important factor. Well, sometimes there might be a village where the grant is taking place that is so remote that there is absolutely no Rotary Club reasonably close to the project site to oversee it. So as your partner, but because international partners are in Rotary Clubs are not necessary for district grants, the project can move forward. That's unlike a global grant where you have to have an international partner. We can match dollar for dollar up to $3,000 per club, and the maximum match on any one district grant is $12,000. And an example of that would be, okay, it's a $24,000 grant. 4 clubs chip in $3,000 each, and the district would match $12,000. So that's how you'd get to 24. I'll show you some other examples of how that works in a few minutes. And progress and final reports, which are absolutely super important, are due to the district. Now on the global side, as you can imagine, global grants, and I can see some of you smiling, although I really can't see you, are a lot more detailed. And I'm going to touch briefly on some of the major points, but we will be covering global grants in more depth at two of our global grant workshops later this spring. In a global grant, the location must be international. It can't be in the United States. The scope of the project, well, I should caution with that. We'll go back to that point. Generally speaking, it's international. The scope of the project is much, much larger. A minimum project to be eligible for a global grant is $30,000, with at least $10,715 coming from District 5960 sponsors and partner clubs and other districts' Rotary clubs. And you do need a host club like we talked about, and that's an international partner in the country where the grant is taking place. The grant concept, as Ed was talking about, must fit into one of RI's 7 areas of focus. So you've got a lot of leeway. You can really go wild with thinking about what you might want to do, and I'm sure you can possibly fit them into one of those focus areas. Now, there's a document called Area of Focus Policy Statements. And I would encourage each and every one of you, if you're thinking about a global grant, to read through that, because it'll give you some great ideas on things you can do And also will squelch some ideas that maybe you thought were pretty terrific, but you can't do them because RI doesn't allow them. So that area of focus policy statement document is a really useful tool. And there's many other requirements for global grants. A needs assessment, absolutely first thing. Training plans, measurement, and a global grant must be sustainable. And that's only to name a few. On the next slide, Kyle, the district, the funding examples. Just to give you an example how the grants might work. Okay, so a single club is a $10,000 project. And remember, we only match at the district level DDF up to $3,000 per club. So if it's a single club that wants to do a $10,000 grant, they can only be matched with 3,000 of our DDF. So they have to come up with a total of $7,000 in order to get to that project total of 10,000. Now let's go to the next one. The next one, you get multiple clubs involved, okay? And you can even do some trading. So Club A says, yeah, I'll contribute to your project for 2,500. And Club B comes in and said, I'll contribute, or Club A is a sponsor. Club B says, I'll contribute, but maybe you could help me on one of my grants. Now the DDF match has gone up to 5,000 because it matched it dollar for dollar up to the 2,500 for each club. So the project total is $10,000. So I always think by involving other clubs, not only do you meet new friends and friends that last forever, but you can maximize your DDF for each grant. And another thing too, it allows other clubs to have a hand in your project. And you know, what better method is that? And it does free up the club funds to be used for another project. So partnering is the name of the game. And I would have to say our grants from last year, we had 15 that came through, and I think 13 of them all have partners and many multiple partners. So anyway, so that's just kind of my take on partnership. As we mentioned, district grants, next slide, Cal. Okay. District grants can be done either locally or internationally. And this year we kind of wanted to show you a couple of project examples and how to do both. So for the local grant, the Barron County Sunrise Rotary Club took the Shark Tank bait last year, and they made a pitch to build an accessible playground in the city of Barron, Wisconsin. And what a show they put on. I think they should get the prize for their work collaborating with the city of Barron, the local businesses in that city, the local Kiwanis Club, can you believe that? And they also sought input on the equipment selection from the children in the local Boys and Girls Club. And then they got the Rotary members involved in building the playground, and I think they had a terrific time doing that. They also received funding from 7 other Rotary clubs in our district to help make their dream of having a playground where all could play a reality. It really does take a village to make good things happen, and it also proves that a small club can make big things happen. So now on to another. In 2019, as we talked a little bit about before, the New Richmond Rotary Club decided to get out of their comfort zone. Dan, are you smiling? And they had a project, they applied for a district grant, but they orchestrated this project down in Panama to improve sanitation in a local school that had one marginally working toilet. And if you saw pictures of it, you'd be like, oh my gosh. Well, anyway, what started out as a simple sanitation project morphed into so much more. Rotarians from New Richmond worked side by side with the Rotarians from the Bocas Rotary Club, the local villagers and others, to build not only a little bathroom, but a double bathroom for boys and girls with a hand washing station. And I'll tell you, what a joy to have a facility that actually worked. Then, because they're overachievers, they also put in some school supplies. And, you know, that just they worked into backpacks, and you can see in the top corner, everybody's holding up their backpacks that were loaded with different school supplies. What a delight for the teachers and the students alike. But one of the best outcomes of the project was the international friendships that were built. Because remember, unlike other club organizations, we are an international as well as local organization. But Rotary can change lives one project at a time. And I'm sure if you talk to any Rotarian from the Barron County Sunrise Club or the New Richmond Rotary Club, you'll find out that doing these grants did have positive impact on them as well as the communities that they served. You know, it just doesn't get better than that. So now we're on back to business. The fun is done, but the magic in how the club dollars are matched for a global grant, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Because these grants were so darn popular, Rotary International, the World Fund, was running out of money. So they switched, if you see down the middle of the slide, it's they now match 8.8 to 1 or 80% to a dollar instead of 1 to 1 that they were doing last year. But at any rate, project total has to meet a minimum of $30,000. That's what it is from Rotary International right now. So how you can get to that is one club, multiple clubs, clubs from other districts. If they put in 10,715, our district, District 5960, would match with DDF of 10,715, and then we would go to RI and they would match 0.8 to 1 or 8572. So the project total comes out to $30,002. And you'll have to admit that even with the lower match, it's a pretty darn good return on your dollars. And what's more important to remember, where do those funds come from? They come from generosity of Rotarians contributing to the foundation. So it doesn't get more magical than that. So back to you, Kyle.
Thanks, Margie. And I want to touch on one thing before we leave that slide. Margie mentioned the reduction in the Rotary Foundation's match of DDF, and you know, we don't like seeing that, but there's a reason why it's there. Number one, the contributions to the Rotary Foundation by Rotarians around the world has stayed fairly level over the last at least 4 or 5 years, and let's even call a little bit longer than that for 10 to 15 years. But the amount of the number of global grants has increased at a much faster pace. In fact, I think now versus 8 or 9 years ago, we have triple or quadruple the number of grants that are being requested. So it's just that more Rotarians are doing global grants more. So if there's a fairly similar pot of money each year, it's just there's more people asking for money for that pot. So so really the only solution is to, well, there's two of them: either raise the amount of money that we're raising, which is easier said than done, or limit the amount that is actually being provided. So that's the reason behind it. It's not because the Rotary Foundation is getting cheap or anything like that. It's just because we're trying to spread out the funds available so we can still do the most good in the world. So that's why there. So with that said, let's take a look at where we are at with funds currently available in our district. First, in 2021, here's a quick summary of what we did for district grants. We had 15 grants, as Margie mentioned before. 10 of those were, let's call them local grants, done somewhere in the area around where a club is, and 5 of them were international in nature. And we provided 73,000. You see the numbers there: 232,000 of district designated funds for use in funding those grants, which went to match the club funds for their projects. And that meant the total expenditure between the DDF and club funds was over 185,000, which is I mean, you just imagine the good that that did in our communities and around the world. In 2021-22, as you remember from a slide a few minutes ago, our amount of DDF that we can use is based on the amount of money we gave to the Rotary Foundation 3 years prior. And then frankly, that 50% that we get splits between global and district DDF. So we're going to have approximately up to $90,000 to use as matching funds for club grants. So we covered this a minute ago, but it's worth reiterating. The maximum match we will provide is up to $3,000 per club and $12,000 per grant. So as Margie shared, it pays to partner with other clubs. Now, in the past several years, except for last year, but it had been for about the 4 years prior to that, an issue we've had is that we've had more requests for grant funds than what we've had available. So we've had a shortfall. If there is a shortfall, we try to be as fair to all concerned as possible in allocating our DDF. And the grants team created a matrix for that calculation a number of years ago. What goes into that? Several factors that I'll touch on briefly. If you have more questions, reach out to Margie or Ed or myself or any of the mentors offline, and we can certainly help explain this more. But the main criteria that come into play is we look at, number one, how much is your club given per capita to the annual fund over in the past 3 years? And we use per capita because the Barron County Sunrise Club with 25 members versus the Northfield Club with 140 members, it's not fair to look at the total amount there, but it's the how much per member. And that's a positive. So the more your club gives per member, the better you're going to fare in this matrix. Number two, your club's participation in other district grants in the past 3 years. That means as a partner in those grants, okay? So the more you partner with other clubs to help them achieve more of that matching, it's beneficial. On the other side of things, we want to give clubs that are bringing grants to the table the first time, we want to give them a little bit of an additional opportunity there because at least statistically, and there's some outliers here, but clubs that tend to do district grants tend to give more money to the Rotary Foundation because they understand the process. So we don't want to just make it based on one of those. So the more grants that you've done in the last 3 years, we look at that as a little bit of an inverse calculation. And so we want to reward those clubs that are bringing a project together for the first time. And then the last part of things, on June 18th, we will ask all of the grant sponsors to come together on a Zoom call that afternoon to provide a little 4 to 5 minute presentation about your project. And part of that is to let everyone else around the district know what you're doing. So it's a great opportunity to connect with potential partners. But the other thing is that the grants team is able to hear about your project as you bring it to life. That, along with the grant application that you've put together, the grant proposal, they evaluate that and kind of rank them on merit. So there is at least a little bit of subjective criteria there as well, because I hate to say it, but some grants are more impactful than others. So we want that to at least be in there somewhat. But so basically, how can you get the most funds? Make sure your club is giving to the Rotary Foundation. Make sure you are partnering in other clubs' grants, and make sure you have a very impactful project. Now, we're going to have, if I can do this correctly, we're going to have our first poll question. Don't just shout out the answer, because I'm going to pull this up, and I don't know. Ed, can you bring up the poll questions? Because it says I'm logged in from another device and my polling session is inactive. So are you able to do it? You're still muted.
I think it should be showing.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, good. I can't see it. So that first question, where can district grants be completed? Within our district only in a different country, or anywhere in the world. So if you can click which one it is, And Ed will show that in a minute. And once you're up to, what do we have that on here? We have 31 participants. So once you're at about 28 or so, 25.
Yeah, for some reason, it's not showing me how many have voted. So
That's okay.
we'll end it and see what it says.
Yeah, let's just end it and see what happens.
I'm not showing any results.
Perfect. Perfect. Did anybody vote? Raise your hand if you voted, because, okay, perfect. Raise your hand here. We'll just do it this way. Raise your hand if you said A. All right. Oh, Valdi, is it showing the results on your screen? Kenny, help us out here.
Yeah,
I
it's
saw
showing
it
the
pop up
results.
just brief. Yeah, I saw it pop up just briefly, and everybody answered C, so it was 100%.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
good. Way to go. We're doing
On
the
the
right
screen.
things here.
Yeah, it's on the screen. We can't see how many that is, but we all have got it. We
Oh,
nailed it,
perfect.
100%.
Way to go, class. Way to go. All right.
Excellent, excellent.
We'll move on from there. Margie is going to take us through the grant creation process in a minute, but I want to touch on just a few things about the requirements to get your club qualified for a grant. Number one, as we mentioned off the top, you need to have someone in your club attend the grants management seminar in order to be eligible for a district grant. So congratulations, all of your clubs are now, well, at least as long as you stay with us for another 20 minutes or so, you will be eligible from that capacity. Number two, you have to be in good standing. That means your dues to Rotary International and to our district are current. You're not delinquent on any dues. And all grant, either progress or final reports are up to date as well. So if you've done other grants in the past and you're delinquent on those, we're gonna have a conversation before you become eligible. And then lastly, there's a Rotary Foundation Memorandum of Understanding and then a district addendum that need to be signed. I think in the email you received from Kathy in the last 24 hours, you should have received those. There is a follow-up email that's scheduled to go out again in the next few days. I think it might be on Monday because Kathy's on vacation, but you'll get those again. But make sure that they are signed by the appropriate people in your club for that. So with that, Margie, why don't you tell us what people need to think about when they're creating a grant?
I would love to do that. Well, the focus of this particular seminar is on district grants, but really the basics are pertinent for global grants as well. And the first one is come up with an idea. Well, how do you do that? The project would support the goals and mission of RI and TRF, and it would promote Rotary awareness. Kyle, isn't there a little tab that would come up? All right, excellent. All right, good grants engage members, support meaningful projects, service projects, and provide a meaningful impact long after the grant is done. One way you can do with a great idea, brainstorm with your club. Make this a fun event. You never know where a great idea may come from. And projects, as we talked about, good work class, they can be local or international in scope. Another thing would be we need to respect the wishes of the receiving community. You know, ask the question, is the project something the community wants and needs? Does it strive to understand and appreciate the culture and the community traditions? Rotarians should be directly involved, and that doesn't mean just fundraising. And you can see in the two that we highlighted how involved those darn Rotarians were. What a great job they did. The project can't be one that, and this is super important, the project cannot be one that has been already started. It must be new. And the grant application has a list of eligible and ineligible projects. And Kyle, can you bring that up or not? Page 2 of the grant application does have a whole list of things that you can and can't do, but obviously, like all things, it's not exclusive. So,
Margie,
you know,
can
if you have a
this on the screen
question,
there?
there it is. Yeah, if
Okay,
you have a
perfect.
question on something you're thinking of doing and you can't see that it fits into any of the eligible or ineligible, please contact your mentor, contact me. We can help you dive through that. Okay, so anyway, so that's on how you come up with a great idea, some ideas on that. Like everything, it's called build a team, okay? And you must have a team of 3 people, and these folks would be called, I would say, your project champions. And the idea would be you'd have, and they're from the club that starts the grant. They can't be from, you know, if Stillwater starts the grant, I can't have a Lake Elmo person be on my 3 lead contact people, even though they would do a good job. That's just not how it rolls. Okay, so as far as that goes, a lead person or the primary contact could be construed as the project manager or the emotional lead. Then you should have a finance person, someone in charge of the budget, fund management, stewardship guidelines, and of course, proper record keeping. Promotion, this person is really important too. They let everyone know what's happening, and they use, you know, they can use social media, they can use print media, anything they can do to toot their horn on this particular project. They would also document the project, provide a narrative of what's going on, take pictures. I mean, pictures tell 1,000 words, and just report on the project impact, because we're all about what impact are our grants providing. And then make sure, of course, with communication that everyone on the team knows what their role is and is on board with the project. So then we have a wonderful team of mentors. So request a mentor, and you can do that tonight, tomorrow, whatever. You can email me and I will be happy to go into our mentor pool and get you one. But your mentor will assist you with defining your concept, you know, that it's acceptable, and putting your idea onto that grant application. Your mentor really will walk side by side with you and help you navigate the ins and outs of the grants process. So, you know that we're here to help, we're here to lend a hand. And sometimes, you know, one of us, we don't know the answer. So we've got a whole pool of really intelligent people that can, you know, try to help us along with our contacts at RI. So, you know, do that. Then you have to build a plan and set a budget. So you describe your project. And here's the deal, guys. Put in this description exactly what you're requesting. Don't go on and on and on and on. And then finally in paragraph 15, it's like, well, we'd like to do this. Put it clearly up front in the first paragraph of what exactly you're requesting and what you want to do. So be clear, stick to the definition of the project, and more importantly, how it will benefit the intended beneficiaries. And like I said, try to stay away from adding tons of language that really isn't pertinent to the project. Using compelling language is another thing that you could use. State how the Rotarians will be involved. Like an example could be, we will help clear the site for the playground. Or we interviewed the organization to explore their needs, and based on their results and on that input, that's how we figured out how to do our grant. So we didn't just go off into space and say, yeah, we think we need that. They need that. They interviewed the outfit to figure out what was most important, figure out a reasonable timeline. You know, like I said, for district grants, we'd like those projects to be done within a year or 12 months, but sometimes that just isn't going to happen, and that's okay. But come up with a reasonable timeline, and then get estimates for the components of the project. Don't guess. The budget should be a reasonable snapshot of what your actual expenses will be, because after all, that's going to be what you're requesting from DDF, from the district, and what you may have to raise from other clubs within our district or other districts, because we do match clubs from other districts with our DDF. Another thing would be to indicate who will own and maintain equipment, who's going to operate and secure the items purchased with the grant funds. And bear in mind, a Rotary club cannot own equipment, so we can't be owners of it. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't discuss OFAC, and that is Office of Foreign Asset Control. And this is a requirement of the US government. They don't want money being diverted to terrorists. So if your grant is in a foreign country, we would check the list to see if the country you will be working with is on the list. But it does not mean that your project can't be done. Absolutely not. You just have to complete the OFAC review checklist. And here's where your mentor comes in. Your mentor can help you over that hurdle. And we had the Nicaragua ambulance project last year. They had to have an OFAC review checklist. And Tony's on the call, and Tony will say it really wasn't that big of a deal, but it is something that's required by our government. So then you would submit the proposal. Now the deadline this year is June 4th, 2021. And here's the deal, you only need to complete the first 4 sections of the grant application. Then you would email that to your mentor, and they can work with you to tweak it or say, maybe it'd be better if you did this, or you're missing X, Y, Z, but they're there to answer your questions on the proposal. And they'll get it ready for the big meeting, which is Friday, June 18th. That's where we'll be looking at all the requests from clubs in the district for district grants, and we'll be deciding how we're going to divvy up our DDF, which is district designated funds. So then your proposal is approved by the grants team and the DDF is allocated. And you're going to be presenting your idea in June 18th, and we'll have it conducted via Zoom like we did last year. And we'll also invite other people in the district so that, they know what's out there and maybe they want to partner with your club. So use that as these other clubs as a group that you can maybe ask to help with your project. Like Kyle said, the grant team uses 3 objective criteria and 1 subjective, and to allocate the available DDF from the block grant if we don't have enough funds. And you'll receive an email shortly after that meeting to let you know that this is what we're giving you for your club's award. But capital letters, red line, whatever, don't start your project then. There's a few more hoops that the district must jump through. And so I would take that block grant, submit it to RI, put everything into the grant application with all of your requests and send it off to RI. And then they look at it and they often will come back with questions on a particular grant proposal. And so therefore, the clarity we can put in our proposals is so important because we don't want those questions. That delays the funding coming from RI. So if everything goes well, usually we get it by mid-July. As soon as I get that approval, you will be notified that you can start your project as soon as you want to. But do not start until our block grant is approved. Otherwise, you've just wrecked your whole doggone grant. So establishing the funding, the finance page, it's really never too early to start working on your funding. If you need partners, reach out to other clubs and ask for help. If you don't ask, they're not going to know you need it, and they're not going to know that, hey, this is really something great that I think our club would love to participate in. And then, of course, we've got Shark Tank this year, too. And so certain clubs that have not had a grant in the last 3 years are eligible to join in on the Shark Tank. And that's where you can get money from other clubs that are being, the sharks, I guess, if you will. So, but anyway, that partnership, that's a good thing to do. But sometimes you might be asked to present at a club, what your project's all about. Be ready to tell your story. Get your act together so you really can tell a compelling story to, get other people to want to go in with your project. And then you would submit the application, and the application is filling in all the rest of the things, like all the way from 5 through 11. So there's so that many sections, but don't get scared. It's not that hard. And the application would be submitted at one of our meetings. The very first one it could possibly be submitted at would be July of 2021. And anyway, so that's if everything goes well. But a couple of things, signatures are required of your 3 project contacts, your president for 2021-22, and the person who's responsible for the final report. And now with this COVID stuff, whatever, we are doing, accepting electronic signatures. So know that, you know, that shouldn't be a stumbling block. And then you'd want to get a letter from your beneficiary, your cooperating organization that specifically states its responsibilities and how it will interact with Rotarians. Like for instance, if you're doing a city project or a playground or something, who after you leave, who's going to actually take care of it and make sure that it doesn't go to rack and ruin in short order. So those things are all important. And then, of course, what do? You implement the project. Once you get the okay, and like I said, mid-July would be the earliest, you can start that project and get moving with it. Communication is key with the people that are helping you, the people in your club, and just keep letting them know what's happening so they know that you're doing good in the world and you're moving ahead with something. Don't hide your light under a bushel basket. Just keep telling people about it. And then document with photos and things like that as you progress, because you know those photos of children or whatever, they really tell a million stories. So you have to maintain good records, manage the project funds appropriately, and keep receipts. That's important. And then at the end, when you're all done, everything's said and done, you submit a progress and a final report. And these are equally as important. A progress or a final report is due 6 month in 6 month intervals for the most part after the approval of your grant, or within 60 days of completing the grant, whichever is sooner. As you work on implementing your project, be thinking of how you'll document your story. And not only for this report, but how are you going to tell your story to the media and the club and, you know, other people that might be interested in, you know, who knows, you may get a new member out of it because you've supported a project that they're absolutely in love with. So as you work on implementing the project, you'd also want to be looking at what are the expected long-term community impacts of the project. And like Kyle said, you know, we want more specific numbers because it would be great to report to RI and our groups, how many people are we actually impacting with our funding? Because, you know, it's all about that positive piece impact. So you'd want to know how many Rotarians worked on the project, what did they do? And obviously it has to be more than fundraising. How many hours did it take to get the project done? And believe me, you'll be amazed at how many hours it does take to get the project done. Photos are great. They tell a great story. And we actually would love, if we ever get back into meeting in person again, we'd love to feature them at future foundation events or other communications. Uh, you know, the income that comes in and the project for the project, you know, if you got money from us or us, the editorial us, of course, District 5960 or other clubs, you would detail that on your final report or your progress report. And of course, the expenditures. And we would need to have receipts and proof that the club actually paid for the items listed. So that's a whirlwind walkthrough for grants. Don't let any of that scare you. Please, please, please know that mentors are here to help you. We want money out in the communities and the world doing good, and grants is certainly a wonderful way to do that. So good luck and come up with some great ideas because I'm waiting to hear about them.
Absolutely. Thanks, Margie. We're going to go to our second poll question if we can figure out how to do this again. So, Ed, why don't you take us there? Again, answer when it comes up on your screen, but what needs to be done to qualify a club for a district grant? Is it A, a club member must attend a grants management seminar? B, a club must be in good standing? C, a club must submit signed MOU and district addendum? Or D, all of the above?
We got the first poll question up, not the second.
Yeah, and It just shows you the value of Kathy Hewitt.
So everybody just raise your hand if you did 1, 2, or A, B, or C.
We're,
Oh, there it is. No, that's
No,
full
same
cushion
one.
one.
Or D for that matter too, Margie, you know, since D is the
Yeah,
right
right,
answer.
it could be.
Let's go
Oh,
D.
was it?
Let's go
Okay.
D.
We're all going D. D is what we
Yeah.
like.
He is the right answer.
Perfect. We'll get this figured out at some point in time. Who knows? All right. Well, we'll move on. As Margie just went through a lot of information, and I'm sure your head may be spinning a little bit, but here's the best news you'll get if that's the case. You're not alone when developing your grant, and we have a lot of tools and resources at your disposal to help you. As Margie mentioned, when you first bring your idea forward, you'll be assigned a mentor. Our mentors are part of our grants team, and they'll work alongside you during the grant process to help make sure your application is put together smoothly, you're thinking about things the right way, and that the full grant process goes as correctly and smoothly as possible. And we do have, besides Margie, who's the grants team leader, we do have 4 of our Valdi Stephenson from the St. Paul Club, Jeff Harnley from Red Wing, Paul Meekin, who is from the St. Paul Club, and Peg Duno from the Lakeville Club. So thanks for being here. And we have several more mentors too. They're here to help. They're not here to be a pain or a nag, or well, they might nag a little bit if you're not getting your stuff done, but that's on you. But they're here to help and make sure that the process is as easy as possible for you. That's why we don't go through all the details here, because we have them to help you. Second, our district international service chair is a position that can help if your grant is being done internationally. Our DISC can help you research any special requirements in a country, identify a club or district on the ground that may be able to assist, provide ideas to get around maybe some challenges that we've had in the past. And we do have those from time to time with certain areas and so forth. So that's a great resource as well. And Jim Hunt from the White Bear Lake Club is our District International Service Chair. We also have our quick reference guide, which I believe was one of the documents that was sent to you. And if not, it will be, but that provides a lot of good information about the grant process as well. I'd recommend reviewing that before you get started, so it at least reminds you of what to be thinking about. And I mentioned your mentor a minute ago, but it's more than just having that single mentor. You're having an entire team of mentors working together behind the scenes to review grants and make sure they're as put together as well as possible. So you may get help from several mentors along the way. If there's a certain area of expertise or somebody sees something otherwise, that's why we ask that you bring the proposals to our grants meetings as well. And there are plenty of online resources out there at our district site or at rotary.org that you can utilize as well. So here's our next poll question, which we're just gonna, again, A, B, or C, throw up 1, 2, or 3 fingers. But and Ed's just going to look at everybody to make sure everybody answered. That's the attendance check. What is the deadline for submitting proposals for the 21-22 Rotary year? Thanks, Mitch, for giving it away to everybody. What part of putting up your fingers did you not understand? All right, so yes, all right. So it's B, it's June 4th. Don't wait until July 4th because you're not doing a grant until 2022-23 at that point in time. Margie, why don't you, as the recovering accountant, talk about the importance of document retention?
All right. Document retention. Why is it important? Well, number one, we're fiduciaries of the funds that are received, and it's our job to make sure that those dollars are spent appropriately. And as far as what goes, keep receipts, keep invoices, letters from vendors or beneficiaries, the grant application, and copies of the progress or the final reports. Those are some what things to keep. And I should add in there too that if you have copies of checks that your club has written to pay for these items, keep those copies as well, and that should be with your progress or your final report. And then reports. It doesn't do us very much good if we never find out what the heck you guys did. What was the result? What was the impact? So recap what you did. tell us what the cost was, who benefited, the impact that was provided, and of course, proof that the funds were spent appropriately. So those are some things, and people think they're done with their project and, you know, they forget about the report, but we are required to have a report on hand of, you know, the dollars that were given from Rotary International. So as fiduciaries, that's just another thing that you have to do, but it's really not that hard. So principles of a successful grant, let's move on to that. Okay, a needs assessment, and we say that people get kind of nervous. A global grant absolutely needs a formal needs assessment. But when I say needs assessment for a district grant, it means that you have in your club, you just haven't said, oh, I think they need that. That you've actually researched that, you know, they need a accessible playground, or, you know, whatever the case might be, the school library needs XYZ, that you just didn't come up with an idea on your own of thinking what they might need, but actually asking, you know, for some input on it. So that would be important. And then to have an organized, capitalized word, organized implementation plan. You know, if you figure out, if you kind of know where you're going, you're probably going to get there. But if you have something that's really disorganized and, well, we don't really know what we're doing, you know, you're going to have trouble with it. So try to be as organized as possible with implementing the plan. And then I can't emphasize communication and teamwork enough. Keep everybody informed. Frequent partner communication and teamwork is key to any successful project, and it's key to energizing club members into, gosh, I didn't know we were doing that. You know, I didn't know we were so, you know, involved in this, that, and the other thing. Sustainable. A global grant must be sustainable, and they have to document sustainability. Now, obviously, district grants, we'd like them to be sustainable too. Sometimes, you know, it's a one-time deal. You know, you're doing a food project, which is absolutely necessary at the time, and it's not something that's going to continue on. But, you know, things like those accessible playgrounds or those latrines, those should be sustainable and be kept up by the communities that have accepted responsibility for taking care of them. And proper stewardship. You know, Rotary's name adds integrity to any project. So don't disrespect that. Just keep in mind that, you know, we're Rotarians, and that is just more important than anything could ever be. And then celebrate the success by promoting the impact of the grant. You know, sometimes we don't celebrate enough. So just keep it moving and celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. So that's it for principles of successful grants. So Kyle, are you
Yeah, I'm coming. All right, thanks. And I made this difficult on myself. I should have not posted. Feel free to send any questions in the chat box before I asked everybody to put their name and club in the chat box again. But please put that back in so we know that you stayed here the whole time. And as you do that, we will kind of wrap up. You know, we talked about a few important things today, and hopefully you got something out of this without going too deep. But we talked about the importance of giving, and obviously the more we give to the Rotary Foundation, the more good work we can do. And over the last few years, as our giving has ticked up within our district, it's been great seeing the response that we're able to do more as a result of that. So our project requests are not going down. And so we need your help in making sure we continue to encourage our members to give to the Rotary Foundation. And one of the easiest ways is sharing the impact, where you can say, hey, this is the project we did, and this is why we got that money. Now, will you help us and others be able to do more things like this? That's powerful from that perspective. The importance of getting qualified, obviously, to do a grant and the process, how the grant works. You can't do it if you don't get qualified. And certainly some of the key takeaways that Margie shared as well in terms of all those tips and tricks to getting a quality grant underway. So, Margie, anything to add on that slide?
The thing I would like to add, how important it is for you to have your president who will start July 1, 2021, and your president-elect for July, that will start July 1, 2021, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Have them sign those MOUs. That seems to be a matter of confusion. It's not your current president or your current president-elect. It's the president-elect who will take over, take the reins July 1 of this year, and the president-elect who will take the reins July 1 of 2022. So anyway, you'll be getting those via email, and please have them signed and get them back to us, because without that, that's one of the key qualifying things that you need to do.
Yep. Thanks, Margie. I'm gonna put up this slide. There's questions, and we'll go back to questions in a second. First, we'll say thank you with our email addresses there. But does anybody have any questions? And then I'm just gonna stop sharing this, and Margie and I can both put our email addresses in the chat. But anybody have any questions at all about what we've covered tonight?
This is Janelle Erickson. I have a question. Can I just
Hi, Janelle.
verbally say it?
Absolutely, go with it. Yes.
So you mentioned member engagement, and I'm just curious, in the case of an international grant request, is it required that people from Rotary actually go there and help facilitate some of the work, or can some of these grants be carried out by the folks who live in those developing countries?
Good question. Margie?
To answer your question, and no, you are not required to actually go to that country to help with the project. But if you can, like in the case of, say, the Panama project or some of the other ones, it certainly does enhance it, but no, it is not a requirement.
Yeah, in a global grant, one of the requirements is completing a memorandum of understanding with the host club where the work is going to be done, and it lays out a part of that memorandum of understanding is what is the international sponsor, our club, going to do, and what's the host club going to do, and hopefully Rotary certainly looks on it more kindly if the host club is going to be involved on the ground in the project, and it's only going to make it more impactful for your club if there are members that can travel and get there and tell firsthand the impact that we're seeing. But even if that can't happen, it can still happen from afar, and keeping your club up to date on what's going on with the process of the grant, or bringing back stories about how people are being impacted as a result, that'll help better engage the club. I think if it's just 2-3 people doing a project off to the side and nobody else knows about it, you're doing a disservice to your club members, because it's not giving them the chance to be proud of being a Rotarian from that perspective.
And with today's use of Zoom or Google Meet or whatever, it seems like it's much easier to actually be face to face with the people you are trying to help in whatever country you're working in. So, but no, it isn't necessary that, and of course now we can't travel anyway, but that you travel to that country. But that contact, that communication, absolutely critical. So.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
And like in your club, say Patty Hall, she has so many contacts in, Nigeria or other countries of the world that, there are people that really can call up friends all over and really know how to participate in international projects. So, use your resources.
Sure. Thank you.
One other question that I got in the chat earlier, hang on one second. We will be emailing out not only the different documents, but we'll be emailing a link to this this recording as well. So you can watch it back to hear our great jokes and a little bit of information too. Somebody else had a question there that I didn't quite hear who that was.
It was me. So you already answered it.
Hi.
Hi, Annie.
Yeah, I was asking like if you guys also if we can receive the electronic document
Yeah.
of the presentation, because Kayla and Margie, you really did a great job for
Great.
covering the presentation. I have one question. On the March 27, we also have another seminar. Is that similar or not? Because it looks like I sign up for that one.
It's similar. I will tell
Oh,
you
I
the
don't
jokes
have
may
to.
not be the same, but no, you don't have to go to that one. So we do
Okay.
3 versions of the grants management seminar, tonight, Saturday morning, and then next Tuesday
April
afternoon
first.
at
Afternoon.
3:30. And
Okay.
then,
The
and
other
then the
one will be
global, yep, the global
global.
grants workshops then are after that. So if you're doing a
That's
global
April.
project, you need to do one of each. Say that again?
Okay, that's April 1st. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's April 1st and April 6th or something like that.
Okay. I have one more question. I'm sorry.
Sure.
I'm taking your guys' time. And, you know, my project, because of the COVID and yeah, whatever is, you know, happening in the world, it really is delayed. So I have to wait another 2-3 months. But now looks like to submit another project, which is I was really working on. So it looks like I can't, right? Because I have to implement that one. Yeah.
Oh, you just have to along the way. We know
progress
that,
report.
especially with the delays, you just have to have an up-to-date progress report,
Yeah. And
done
Ani,
when requested.
you can call me and we can talk about it in person. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question.
Hi, Don.
Hi, I came in late, which I apologize for already. Now, I just submitted my final report for the district grant, collecting some information from Margie.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
And I want to, first of all, thank Baldy for being a mentor for me. He was an excellent mentor. Now, as far as tonight goes, since I was late, can I just review the recording for what I missed and qualify, or do I have to attend another session?
I don't,
Don,
what time did,
which club are you in again?
I'm in the Greater Rochester Rotary.
Well, you're okay because Mike Becker's here as well from your club. So between the two of you, we'll call it good enough from
sure.
somebody
Well,
here.
somebody else from our club is there too.
Oh, well, then even better. Yep. Then you had all bases covered.
Okay, thank you.
Which is great if more members from one club comes, because then collaboratively you go, I didn't hear that. What the heck are you talking about? You know?
Yep.
So, yeah.
Thank
And you
you.
did a great job on the report, by the way. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Janelle. I have another
Hi,
question.
Janelle.
So when you're talking about getting other clubs involved to act as partners, the slides made it sound like all of these clubs needed to be within our district. And is that the case, or can we engage clubs from all over the world?
We will match a club anywhere in the world that wants to donate to your project from anywhere.
Great.
So they do not have to be District 5960 clubs. They can be 5950, 5580, whatever, you know, whoever you know. And, you know, sometimes it's like, who cares who the author of the project is? The main result is what's the impact and the change we're creating in these lives of the people that are that we're impacting with our projects. And like we just partnered with a club in Maryland for a project for it's a deaf school in Niger. You know, I mean, it's a matter of, we can all do good in the world. We just don't all have to be the author. So, but yes, we will match clubs from all over.
Great.
And a technical answer there too. I'm just sharing this is the funding page or the financing page on the application. You see this first section, this is District 5960 clubs. And if you come down below, this is for any other clubs from that standpoint in other districts. So just, there's 2 spots for them, but yeah, it totally works. Just don't put them all in one area, but separate them out there.
Got it. Thank you.
Kyle, roll that up to is that the right? I'm gonna have to look at that, because clubs if you have a partner, you know, say in Ethiopia or whatever, they do not have to contribute $100 where it says
Oh, yeah.
under there. They don't have to contribute money. That used to be a qualifier, but not anymore. Ah, thank you.
Magic.
Yeah, what date are you using on that? Is that the one I just sent you and I didn't catch that?
Yep, 3/21/21.
Yeah, all right.
What's
thanks.
up, everybody? Margie makes mistakes. That's what we've
Yeah,
learned here tonight.
all the
Baldy, I know
time.
you're shocked.
Yeah, all the time. But so anyway, we'll get that corrected and out to you, but that's an important thing.
Yeah. Any
So
other?
thanks.
Yeah, I had just one statement. Margie, I don't know if you clarified the 6-month report period, but it starts from the time that the application is approved.
Correct.
6 months, that
Correct.
is the starting point for the 6-month reporting.
So what happens is when we approve an application, I'll send out a email, you know, saying congratulations, a check has been ordered, XYZ is going to deliver it either virtually or in person to your club. And you have a report that is due on, you know, whatever this is 6-month date is. And then I also send them a copy of that report format. So you'll get plenty of advice on that. But and if you don't get the report in, believe me, you'll get an email from me. So that's called the nag aspect of the job, I guess.
With any questions? Hearing one, two. Well, then I'd like to thank everybody for spending some time tonight with us, and hopefully this gave you a little better feel for what's involved in the grants process, and thank you more so for being here, because it means that you probably want to do something in your club that will make the lives of people in your community or around the world better. And again, as Rotarians, that's what we're all about. Margie, anything else to add from your perspective? And Ed,
No.
will ask you as well.
Thank you for attending. And, you know, really, to me, grants just tell the story. That's just one big way to say why we give to the foundation.
I would just say what Margie just said, so we're good.
Perfect.
Copycat.
Ditto.
All right. Well then, thanks, and have a good evening. And remember to get the MOU and district addendum in, and then you guys are pretty well qualified as long as you pay your bill. So there you go. So thanks for being here, and good night.
All right. Thanks, Kyle.
See you Saturday.